Ren Isaacs stepped onto the observation deck of the Ardea 9, just as the sky above the line track bunched itself into snarls of electric violet. Charged dust hissed across the rails and leapt upward, whisked skyward by columns of invisible static. To the west hung the coppery smear of the great storm belt, a moving continental bruise that had eaten every satellite, killed every compass, and snarled every digital system built since the century turned. Yet the train still floated, humming on its superconductive cushions, kept aloft by technology that should have been impossible to sabotage, even by a sun gone feral. 3 minutes, Moore alone called from the sound booth grafted to the side of the lounge car. She held up a flat black disc with the reverence of a priestess displaying a relic. Passenger compartment will go dark when we spin up. Warn anyone whose nerves can't take a blackout. Ren lifted his cap and scratched at the sweat gathering beneath it. Passengers are as ready as they'll ever be. It's the crew I'm worried about. Mora's eyes flicked toward the restless sky. Then you'd better get everyone listening. The rails will disappear on this crossing. They both knew what that meant. The suspensor field would keep the Ardea 9 afloat, but steering through the magnetic maelstrom required guidance the computers could no longer give. Instead, they followed melody. Each vinyl disc in the rack preserved the song of a bird no human ears had heard in living air for at least a century. Last known calls of vanished species trapped in analog grooves. The frequencies of those songs resonated with pockets of relative calm inside the storms, corridors discovered by accident decades ago when a field engineer tested an old natural history recording over the speakers and watched the auroras bend away. The discovery became doctrine. When satellites failed, you found the song that matched the storm's harmonics, amplified it through the train's hull, and the sky would open a transient passage. But because the birds were gone and the recordings irreplaceable, each disc was cataloged and signed out under armed supervision. Ren had never held one himself. Captains were trusted with the route, not the talisman. He left Mora threading the disc onto the turntable and headed for the front of the train. The lounge lights dimmed while he walked. Below the glass floor panels, 300 meters of nothing yawned, a cataract of gritty wind, shredded clouds, and the glimmer of buried track far beneath, utterly irrelevant to a levitating train. The passengers had drawn silence over themselves like blankets. Some pressed palms to windows, hunting for the first green flicker that signaled the storm's inner wall. Others shut eyes and mouthed prayers to gods who might translate vinyl noise into mercy. Ren stepped through the last pressure door into the pilot bay. Pelavarma, the teenage ornithologist chartered for this route, sat cross-legged before an antique speaker the size of a wardrobe. The boy's dark hair trembled in the field of alternating current. His freckled face was lit by auroral flashes beyond the windshield. Beside him, old engineer Danziger wrestled with the inertial dials, nudging the train's nose in micro-increments that felt more like intentions than movements. "Captain," Danziger said without looking up, "we've got a sliver of safe gradient at azimuth 86, elevation 3, if the groove holds." "It'll hold," Pell said. "Mora chose the right record. Imperial Wood Wren, last captured 2112 in Columbia. High trill, low warble, pendulum cadence. Perfect for a storm that starts hard and plateaus in the middle." He spoke like a sommelier describing varietals, which would have been irritating if Wren didn't need that certainty. A needle scratch rippled through the train's PA. Then the Wren's song poured out. Bright, looping notes layered so precisely they seemed to corkscrew the very air. Wind clawed back from the hull. Static arcs leapt between sky and track, but not to the train. Instead, they curved away, forming an incandescent tunnel around Ardea 9. Danziger whistled. Every time, kid. Like you can talk directly to weather. Pell shrugged. Weather just remembers them better than we do. The tunnel flickered southward. Danziger throttled incrementally, letting the train drift with the migrating corridor. The sky's violet glaring turned to streaks of celadon and gold. Wren's stomach lifted, the sensation of gliding over void, but he kept his posture calm. Leadership was 90%, pretending you never doubted. Minutes passed in velvet murmur. The Wren's call repeated, each revolution of the disk guiding them farther from visible Earth. Below, all Wren could see was the glow of their own magnetic wake. Above, the aurora pressed like a ceiling of shattered stained glass. The train floated inside an hourglass of sound. Halfway through the record's second side, the storm unexpectedly lurched. Lightning not made of electricity but of polarized plasma slashed over the rails ahead. The tunnel's wall kinked inward, a hungry mouth. Pell's eyes widened. That's not supposed to happen with this species. Magnetic drift? Wren suggested. Maybe. Or the disk is worn. Pell pointed to a tremor in the waveform on the readout. Hear that? Microflutter at 23 seconds. Could be the groove collapsing. Danziger's mustache twitched. We're 6 minutes from the crossing midpoint. Anything fail-safe on deck? Pell bit his lip. There's a fallback track, the Kauai 00, but it's rough. Last pressing ever made. Took a bullet during the resource riots. We don't have 6 minutes, Wren said. A second bolt sliced ahead, this one close enough to send vertigo lurching through the cabin. Swap discs, Pell. The boy vanished down the corridor. Wren keyed the intercar channel, voice steady. Mora, cue up the 00, on my mark. A few breaths later, he heard scuffling in the booth. A latch clicked, and the first melancholy whistle of the Kauai 00 spilled through the PA. It was a lonelier sound, single descending notes, each fading like someone exhaling in surrender. Wren felt it in his ribs, an ache for things that never learned they were dying, until silence fell behind them. The storm responded instantly. The kinks smoothed out, replaced by a clear, sinuous path arcing higher into the troposphere. But something else happened, too. Unshielded currents surged into the train's resonance coils. Gauges spiked scarlet. The cabin lights blinked, came back dimmer. Danziger muttered, Old rails north of here are mined with salvage drones. Storm this strong can wake them. Wren remembered the briefing. Autonomous scrap collectors built long before, now derelict. The drones hunted conductive metal and harvested anything magnetic. A levitating train was the juiciest target in 1,000 kilometers. That'd be bad luck, Wren said. Keep eyes open. As if summoned, a radar ping bloomed on the center display. Pell, newly returned, swore. 3 contacts at 10 o'clock, closing fast. Danziger angled a feed to the forward monitor. In the distance, 3 insectoid shapes tumbled out of cloud, borne on their own electromagnetics, claws unfolding like silver tulips. Cut output to port coils, Wren ordered. Starboard boost. We'll sideslip. Danziger complied. The train listed just enough to nudge them off the drone's approach vector. But the metal flowers corrected course. They were too smart for a simple dodge. More volume, Pell whispered. Those things home on induction, but they're sensitive to certain pitches. Wren tapped channel open. Mora. Boost 00 recording 10 decibels. Static crackled. Mora said, It's already near threshold. If we overdrive, we risk blowing the stylus. Do it, Wren said. The descending whistle swelled until it felt more like a pressure change than a sound. Windows resonated. Wren's teeth vibrated. Out ahead, one drone faltered, spiraling away as if confused by grief encoded in song. The other two kept coming. "They're mod-shielded," Danziger barked, watching gauges. "No effect." Wren's mind searched the catalog. "What else do we have that's percussive? Something with stutter. Passenger quarters too panicked already. Only the birds are safe to broadcast." Pell clicked through inventory on his handheld. Greater Adjutant Stork. Calls a deep clack made by beak snapping. It's more rhythm than tone. That might scramble their echolocation. Wren nodded. "Cue it." Mora announced, "Switching discs. Brace." A heartbeat, a pop. Then the train filled with a wooden knock, spaced irregularly, like a hammer striking a hollow log inside a cathedral. The drones veered, trying to recalibrate. One flew straight through an eddy of charged dust, ate a bolt of ground current, and detonated in a burst of white sparks. The second passed under the train's belly, talons extended. From the hidden tool bay came a shriek of tearing alloy. The car shuddered. Damage lights ignited crimson. Pressure door alarms chimed three-note warnings. Wren slapped the master seal and felt the deck settle into emergency isolation. "Report," he called. Chief Service Officer Anya Kojo answered from engineering. "Lower cargo pod breached. Non-critical. We lost some crates." "Any risk to hull integrity?" "Not yet, but we're bleeding conductor fluid. If we drain below 70%, levitation control is compromised." "How long do we have?" "Depends on turbulence. Storms starved the field. We're working at 60 kA headroom. Maybe 20 minutes. Wren exhaled. The next safe junction where the storms thinned enough for maintenance was 30 minutes ahead at current speed. If the record lasted, if no more drones attacked, if the puncture didn't widen. Danziger studied telemetry. "Could we climb?" "Higher altitude means weaker flux, less drain." "Risk losing corridor," Pell objected, pointing to frequency readouts. "Birdsong only aligns here. Higher up, harmonics shift." Wren made the call. "We climb 300 meters, but keep the Stork running. Adjust azimuth as needed. If the corridor dissolves, we'll drop back fast. Kojo, reroute fluid from aft refrigeration lines into main coils. We can handle heat later. Right now, we need lift." "Aye, Captain," came the crackled reply. They ascended. The aurora thinned to chalky streaks. The Stork's hollow clacking echoed across the hull like distant carpenters. Wren watched the gauge needle waggle at the edge of yellow. Slowly, it steadied, then crawled higher. 72%. 73. Pell grinned, relieved, but the boy's expression froze as he caught a new blip on sonar. Another contact. Bigger? Could be a mother drone. "Of course," Wren muttered. Salvage systems often dispatched one large carrier to coordinate. "Range. 7 kilometers and closing." Mora's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we're almost out of undamaged discs. The last viable one is, well, it's personal." "Define personal." "I have a single of the New Caledonian crow. Recorded by my grandmother the week before the species collapsed. It's not in the official archive. I keep it for myself." Silence filled the cockpit. Pella whispered, "Crows are problem solvers. Might confuse the AI." Wren answered, "Mora, this may be the only time that record saves more lives than your heart. We need it." She didn't respond for a long moment. Then, "Understood. Bring it to the booth. And Captain, handle it like you're holding the bird." Wren jogged back through the corridor. Lights flickered, illuminating frightened faces. Passengers clutched arms of chairs or each other, listening to the alien woodpecker rhythms booming overhead. He nodded reassurance, crossed into the booth. Mora stood before the turntable, cradling a translucent, smoky gray disk. In the center, handwritten label, Corvus Moneduloides G. Leung, 2089. Her fingers trembled. He extended both hands. She laid the disk into his palms. The vinyl was warm as though imbued with body heat. Wren placed it reverently on the spindle and brought the needle down. A hush replaced the stork. Then a series of clicks, rattles, and liquid warbles unfurled. Nothing like the soaring songs of warblers, nothing like the lamenting owl notes. The crow spoke in packets of curiosity, knocking sticks together, dropping shells, interrogating the world through percussion. It was cleverness made audible. Wren switched monitors. The mother drone, a grotesque sphere bristling with articulated magnet claws, surged through cloud, flanked by 2 new scouts. Danziger diverted power, but the drones were already adjusting to match. "Broadcast crow call through phased array," Wren said. Pella tapped controls. The sound leapt from speakers to hull plates, turned the entire train into a giant corvid throat. On screen, the mother drone hesitated. One scout peeled off, circling uncertainly. The control sphere flashed internal lights, interpreting data it could not categorize. The crow's language was not symmetrical. Some clicks were echolocation, others pure play. Machines that sought patterns found themselves in a maze with no walls. "Come on," Danziger murmured. "Get confused." The mother drone fired a test bolt, but aimed wide. Then it began rotating slowly, like a dog chasing its tail. Pella laughed. "It thinks the target's everywhere." Wren seized the moment. "Full throttle. Burn along the corridor. Bleed velocity before we leave the belt." Ardea 9 surged forward, engines whining. The crow kept talking, inventing variations lost to living birds, but etched forever in polymer. The storm thinned. Colors receded. Ahead, a pale indentation in cloud marked the eye. An ancient caldera, whose basalt walls disrupted the field naturally. It was their harbor. If they could reach it, repairs would be possible. Alarms subsided. The fluid gauge held at 80%. The drones dwindled behind, still spiraling. Wren exhaled for the first time, in what felt like an eon. Pella slumped against the console, eyes closed. Mora's voice came faint with static. "Copy your situation. Looks like you're clear." "We're clear," Wren said. "Bring crow volume down to standard." The click rattle softened to background hush, a final chord of twilight. Crew began unsealing compartments. Passengers stirred, whispering questions. Some had assumed the noise was part of the train's mechanical language. Others realized they'd just been saved by a dead species and were the expression of people who heard ghosts speak their name. Pell tugged Wren's sleeve. "Sir, request permission to collect the crow's acoustic data. There might be new variants we've never analyzed. If we can catalog those clicks, we could build adaptive algorithms for future crossings." Wren nodded. "Do it, and get Mora. She deserves co-credit." He added, quieter, "And tell her I'll authorize a high-quality duplicate pressing for her personal archive." Pell grinned and bounded away. The train banked gently, settling over the eye of basalt. Sunlight, real sunlight, unfiltered by flux, poured through the cockpit glass, washing away the storm's bruise colors. Wren smelled ozone, but also something almost floral carried on the breeze. Perhaps riverbanks bloomed down in the caldera, safe under that natural magnetic shield. Maintenance drones deployed, loyal to the human crew, rather than scrounging AI. Kojo supervised them patching the cargo pod. Danziger shut down propulsion and let the levators idle. The Ardea 9 floated like a metal swan above a volcanic lake that glinted turquoise. On the deck outside, Passengers disembarked onto an observation platform extruded from the train's belly. They stretched, photographing wildflowers that colonized ash slopes. Children pointed at the sky where the aurora retreated, leaving an ordinary blue vault. Some asked what the strange echoes had been. The crew explained in careful sentences about extinct birds guiding living travelers. Inside the booth, Wren found Mora wiping the crow disc with microfiber, tears bright on her cheeks, yet her smile triumphant. She looked up. I thought lending it would break my heart, but it feels like the bird flew one more time. It did, Wren said. It guided us. That's what flight is for. Later, while the caldera's shadow stretched long, Wren convened a quick council. Repairs would take 3 hours. Supplies remained intact despite the breach. They could still reach Port Salinas by dawn tomorrow and offload medicine for the coastal hospitals. The route ahead lay under lesser storms, only moderate interference predicted. Nevertheless, they inventoried remaining disks: hooded Pitohui for mid-level flux, marsh Tapaculo for tight caverns, a cracked but maybe playable California Thrasher in reserve. Pell approached carrying a data slate, alive with waveforms. Captain, you need to hear this. He played a segment captured during the worst of the passage. The crow's clicks arranged themselves into complex fractal patterns. See that? Not repeat loops. It improvises. There's information encoded, possibly a map of the field in real time. Mora leaned over, astonished. You're telling me the crow predicted turbulence? Not predicted, mirrored it. Which means if we decode correlation in advance, we can feed synthetic calls calibrated on the fly. We won't depend on physical disks. Wren considered the implications. No more vulnerable vinyl. No more trusting a single groove against heaven's anger. And yet, a pang tugged at him. Would synthetic birds still carry wonder? Would passengers feel the presence of vanished feathers? He caught Mora's eye. She must have been thinking the same, because she said, We'll keep the originals too. Artifact and algorithm, memory and math. Outside, sunset painted the basalt walls amber. A real flock of cliff swifts, living cousins to none of the lost species, but still valiantly present, dipped and wheeled above the lake. Their calls were thin and sharp, but vibrant with presence. Wren addressed his crew. We move at 1900 hours. Until then, make ready, eat, rest, and take 5 minutes, just 5, to listen to the swifts. Let the living sounds remind us what we're protecting. They dispersed. Wren remained at the window, hands clasped behind him, watching silhouettes flicker against the sky. He tried to imagine the extinct birds that had saved them. The wood wren's spirals, the owl's lament, the stork's semaphore, the crow's riddles, and pictured them perched together on an invisible wire stretching across time, guiding not only trains, but hearts. The great storm belt still raged out there, and tomorrow they would ride into it again. Yet tonight, in the eye's calm, vinyl grooves slept inside padded cases, housing voices that did not die, but transformed into compass roses. Wren listened, and in the hush between wind gusts, he fancied he could hear the faint scratch pop of a record reaching its end, needle lifting, ready to be set down anew.